Thanks for joining us. We make activism easy. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is show number 449. Thanks for listening to Gun Owners Radio. Check us out online. If you're not following us on social media, follow us, share us, let everybody know about us. Sign up for our newsletter. We send an email out and make sure that you're plugged into the Second Amendment community. And like I said, tell your friends, and thanks for listening. We have a really cool show coming up. We're going to talk about a couple of different things. Got a lot of good news, actually, in this show, which I'm very, very excited about. So there you go. Dakota, how are you?
Good.
Awesome.
Having a good day.
Yeah, it's on this beautiful, warm, sunny San Diego day. Alicia, how's it going over there?
Loving it.
Good. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Where are we broadcasting from, Alicia?
So, Gun Owners Radio is broadcasting from our new home here at Discount Gun Mart, also known as DGM. Check out DGM in San Diego on Marina Boulevard, as well as in Santee out by Gillespie Field off the 67 and Prospect. Look up discountgunmart.com for more info.
There you go. All right. What's it time for?
It is now time for the Gun Truth of the Week.
Gun Truth of the Week. Every week we pull a stat or some kind of factoid or something that you're not going to hear from the mainstream media. You're not going to hear really anywhere. We want to make sure that we get the news out because it's always very interesting. So this week's Gun Truth of the Week is, according to the U.S. Department of Justice, women who do not resist during an attack are 2.5 times more likely to suffer a serious injury from the attacker. This is compared to women who resist with a gun. So that is 2.5 times more likely. Men who do not resist are only 1.4 times as likely. So what does this mean? Well, it means what we've been saying for years now. Get a gun, get trained, get a permit, and carry everywhere you possibly can. I thought it was particularly interesting. It was a particularly interesting contrast between women who are armed, women who are not armed, and then comparing that with men. Clearly, being armed benefits a woman far more. And I thought it was interesting. This reminded me of, I saw a video I wanted you guys to see and see what you thought of. It was a video that I found. This factoid reminded me of this video, and I thought this video articulated situational awareness really, really well. So play that video.
There's a study actually done. New York City, they put up cameras years ago and they started recording people walking in New York City. Then they took the footage and they played it to convicted felons in prison. And they said to them, who would you pick as prey? They all picked the same people to prey on. All the same people, just by walk. There were 3 types of walk they found out. One walk was, I'm walking, I'm sloppy, I'm not paying attention, I'm just like in my own space. I have really no deliberate purpose in the way I'm moving my body. Target, easy prey. Other easy prey, my walk is small, I'm more timid, I'm kind of like not comfortable, I'm like paying attention. Easy prey. Those 2, bar none, were picked. You know who they didn't pick? The walk wasn't too sloppy big, it wasn't too small, it was right in the middle, and it's deliberate. I'm in control of my body, I'm looking around, I'm present, I own my space. That person I want nothing to do with. Those group of people were not picked to be targets.
I thought that was really interesting. There's a woman I'm very close with and have been for decades. She, years ago, in really, quick, in just over the course of just a couple of years of her life, was almost attacked by 3 different guys. And I'm sitting there going, well, the first time is bad. The second time, wow, what a coincidence. The third time, though, there has to be something to this. Why is she in particularly getting targeted? And it was they were weird. There was one where she was at a Walmart. She came out to her car, and a guy said, "Hey, there's something wrong with your car," and was trying to convince her that there was something wrong with her car, and was trying to convince her to duck down and look under. And she was like, wait, something weird's going on here. And she was just like, thank you, beat it. And the guy got really aggressive with her. She ended up taking her car to the shop, and the shop's like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with your car. It's like this weird situation. There was another one where she got followed by somebody, and she was smart. She went on U.S. government property where she knew that they really enforced the speed limit, and she, went like 10 miles over the speed limit on purpose to get pulled over. Sure enough, got pulled over, told the cop. They found the guy, and he had a rap sheet. And
Wow.
like 3 stories over the course of just a few years. I'm going, what is going on? So there's clearly something to this. But I thought that this video, like I said, you say situational awareness, but I thought this video articulated in a very real way what situational awareness really means.
And actions that you can take to be less likely to become a victim. There was a study done in the 80s that showed that victims of violent crime do tend to display certain walking habits. So if you're really interested, you want to be a nerd about this, you can go read all of the things they found about how you should walk to avoid victimization. But Ted Bundy, a long time ago, made a comment about the fact that he could tell a good victim by the way she walked down the street, the tilt of her head. I don't know if you guys have heard that quote, but they actually did research since then that found that that's very accurate for psychopaths. There's 2 types of psychopathy that the study looked at. And the first one is factor 1 psychopathy. So that's like if you are really aware of what's going on around you, you're paying attention, you're actively kind of looking for victims. And those folks in general are totally lacking empathy, totally lacking remorse. There's a different kind of psychopath where they're just maybe antisocial, impulsive, things like that. And those psychopaths weren't able to as accurately determine victims. But all of the psychopaths that ranked really high on that factor 1 psychopathy had very, very similar comments when they watched these videos. The tilt of the head, the gait, the attractiveness, the clothing, like they all made very similar observations when they selected their victims, which I thought was really interesting.
Did it change after reading all that? Did it change the way you walk at all? Did you notice yourself going, I need to tilt my head a different way or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's more, for me, it was more about just being intentional in my walk. I think my actual natural gait is fine how it is. But sometimes if I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing, or if I'm, maybe on my phone while I'm walking a little slower, not focusing on where I'm going, I think I just have that little voice in the back of my head that's like, maybe I should stop doing this and have a normal walk and walk with purpose and, from point A to point B kind of thing.
That's interesting. You see it all over the place. Back when I was in banking a million years ago, one of the things they talked about a lot is if somebody is in your lobby and they were, displaying any kind of suspicious behavior or whatever, to engage, to kind of, not aggressively get in their face, but like, hey, can I help you?
Yeah.
What's going on right now? Is there something? And because they don't want, they want easy prey.
Yeah. Someone with bad intentions is going to generally make what are called furtive gestures. They're going to either be looking around, looking to see who's going to be a witness to what I'm getting ready to do. Sometimes they're working up the courage to kind of do what they want to do, but there'll be certain behavioral characteristics you can look for that indicate, hey, this guy's up to no good, and I need to be watching out for this guy.
That's interesting.
Yeah, there's some good research out there on pre-assault indicators or pre-assault cues. I think there's some YouTube videos if people want to kind of dig into that, but it's really fascinating.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, cool. All right. Well, that is your gun truth of the week. Awesome. Good discussion, guys. Thank you. All right. Okay. So Q&As. We have, we get a lot of questions. I get a lot of questions throughout the week, and I like to make sure that if I'm answering a question for one person, that I get it out there so that everybody hears. Because I figure if one person's asking, everyone's asking. First question was, is there a list of handguns that are on the roster? And yes, there absolutely is. In fact, anybody can check it out. Or if you just go into any shop, they can pull it up real quick, but it's on the Attorney General's website. I can't give you the full. If you just Google
California roster, it comes right up.
Yeah, it comes right up. oag.ca.gov/firearms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's real super easy to find, and it'll pull up the whole list, and you can actually search it by manufacturer. You can search it by a couple of different criteria, but particularly by manufacturer. And I thought this was interesting. I haven't really looked at this in a while at the website, but right at the top there's an important information section, and they talk a lot about single shot guns. First off, they start with all handguns listed are approved with or without night sights. So whether or not the model has night sights or not, doesn't matter. It'll make it onto the roster with or without night sights. Both models. If it comes with night sights, it's fine. Without, it's fine. But I thought it was interesting. There's a whole section here that I hadn't seen before. Aftermarket changes or modifications made to certain single-shot pistols, i.e., changing upper receivers, connecting gas tubes, may be considered manufacturing these pistols into assault weapons. They go on to say the conversion of a single-shot pistol to a semi-automatic pistol may constitute the manufacturing of an unsafe handgun. Alterations of a single-shot pistol, i.e. changing upper receivers, connecting gas tubes, may also be considered manufacturing an unsafe handgun. Anyway, highly recommend if that's something you're doing, you should check this out because it's some good information. You want to make sure that you stay on the right side of the law. Trust me when I say I hate these laws as much as you do. You do not want to violate a gun law in California. Your whole life will be ruined. So anyway, yes, there is a way to check the roster online. That's how you do it. When the same person asked, have any guns been listed recently? So they're wanting to know if any guns have come onto the roster recently. So they weren't really specific as far as what recently means, but in the last couple of years, yes, a lot of pistols have been added to the roster.
A lot of really good choices nowadays.
Yeah, and it's because there was the lawsuits that are trying to get rid of the roster. They said, hey, you don't have to do this stupid microstamping anymore. So that's why they're able to come on. But very recently, there are, Arms Corps Precision AP9, a couple different versions of that, and the Citadel 1911. I'm not familiar with any of those. You guys?
No, they're not as popular, not as common firearms.
Mm-hmm.
So they and this was, just about a month ago, right?
Yep.
That they came on?
About that, yeah. The Gersons brought on a couple of high-power clones. Those are new on the roster. Those are available.
Yeah, not that long ago. I mean, a few months now, but we've got like the P365 Rose version, which is like the XL size. We've gotten the Hellcat Pro a little bit before that, I think. We've gotten some
super popular, yeah.
Yeah, we've gotten some really popular concealed carry options.
Oh, I'm mistaken. Here's the ones that just came on like last week. Gerson, imported by European American Armory Corporation. They're MCP35, which I'm not familiar with.
It's a kind of a gaudy high power.
It's a gaudy high power?
It is. Take a look at it. Yeah.
They have a picture of it?
Well, if you click that link, no. But if you copy paste it into a Google search, yes. I've worked with someone on one of these.
You have to show me. And then Century Arms got a bunch of stuff on there, and even Smith & Wesson got some stuff on there recently.
Quite a few revolvers. So if you're a revolver fan, Smith & Wesson has a lot of new models on the roster now.
Yeah, and just a note, too, is that you only need a firearm on roster if you're purchasing it new, right? Like, you can still do private party transfer if you can find somebody who's selling a used gun. It doesn't have to be on this list.
Yeah, a lot of people think the roster details a list of allowed or legal guns, and that's not what the roster is.
It's not what it is.
You can have off-roster guns.
Yeah, the only thing the roster does is it limits what an FFL can sell to their customer.
Correct. Which is why if you look at a gun shop and you're like, well, why are there some on consignment? Why are there some used? That's because the gun shop cannot take ownership of anything off roster and then turn and sell it. So what they are is a middleman, and they'll put it on consignment.
And we're working to get rid of it. There are lawsuits happening. In fact, I got an update a little later in the show about something that's going on there. Last question is, if I have my California CCW from another county and I move to San Diego, or any other county really, do I have to start from the beginning of the application process? The answer is unfortunately yes. You have to start from scratch as if you're brand new. So even if you've, say you live in Riverside, you have your Riverside CCW, you've had it for years and it's not expired, you're supposed to, when you get to San Diego, you're supposed to give up your CCW in Riverside. I think you have 30 days to do that. And then, yes, you got to start and apply from the beginning. You have to get in the back of the line. It's unfortunate. It's a really sloppy piece of CCW law here in California, but unfortunately, that's what you have to do. So, good question. All right. Any questions, comments, concerns on that?
No, I mean, it obviously is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Super sad that you're going to have to go unarmed for a while, but hopefully, with activism, like we talk about, we will hopefully eventually change that.
Exactly. And it's kind of a mixed, the solution to that is to have a state issued CCW permit that's issued by the state, and there's no sheriff in between you and the state. But
yeah, that's
do we really
scary.
want that here in California?
No,
it works
we
really
don't.
well in Florida, but we're not Florida. So,
Right, yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, let's do our lawsuits update.
All right, so this segment is our legal and legislative segment where we tell you what you need to know from the courts and from the legislators. But remember, I'm not a lawyer, neither is Dakota or Mike, and we are not here to give you legal advice. All legal advice should come from a properly licensed California attorney. Our sponsor, John Dillon, is an attorney. John has been helping more and more people to fight those GVROs, those gun violence restraining orders. If you know somebody that's had their self-defense rights taken away in any capacity without due process, please give John a call. His website is dillonlawgp.com, and his phone number is 760-642-7150.
Okay, AB 1333. That's the bill that would have killed your ability to defend yourself, and it is now dead. So what exactly happened? Well, AB 1333, I'm sure you've heard, but if you haven't, it would have required that you basically see if there's a way to retreat before defending your life. So let's go into that more detail to talk about exactly what they were attempting to do. I think it's worth talking about. But before we do, it's important to know that bill is now dead. And this is very rare that this happens. By the time a bill makes it to Sacramento, there's almost nothing you can do to influence it. It's, the people that are going to vote on it in the Assembly and in the State Senate already have their mind made up. You can make phone call after phone call. You can send email after email. The likelihood of killing a bill once it's been introduced up in Sacramento is nil to, nothing. And that's unfortunate. So, what you want to try to do and what we attempt to do is get the right people elected so that these horrible bills are never introduced in the first place. But there's always an exception.
Yeah.
And this was a big exception. And I got to tell you, it's amazing. I can't remember the last time I've seen a bill proposed, an uproar, and then it killed, before it is even voted on.
Less than 3 weeks.
Yeah, this early is amazing.
Yeah, there was so much pressure. There was so much pressure for them to pull the bill, and I think district attorneys were calling, and there was a lot of outrage.
There was, and they say there's a saying out there: victory has many parents, and failure is an orphan. And so everybody's taking credit, and what I want to do is I don't want to take credit. I want to give credit. I want to give credit to everybody that did anything. If you talked about it with a neighbor, if you made a phone call, if you sent an email, if you commented on a news story where they were talking about AB 1333, I want to give credit to every Second Amendment organization in California or that concentrate on this issue in California. Give credit to the Republican Party. They are saying that hey, they did a lot to pressure the author of this bill. And then Sheriff Bianco up in Riverside was very vocal about it. So everybody, take your victory lap. This was a group, joint coordinated event. Everybody stood up and said, yeah, this is ridiculous. So let's talk about exactly what they were trying to do, because I think it's important to kind of understand what was going on there and understand why exactly this thing died. The author is... the guy's not an idiot. I think that it's easy to hear somebody, especially somebody in power, who's trying to do something that you disagree with and pass them off as an idiot. This guy graduated from MIT.
Yeah.
I didn't graduate from MIT. Not a lot of people graduate from MIT. He's not a dumb man. So what exactly influenced this guy? First off, what was he trying to do, and what influenced him to change his mind? His name, by the way, is, I'm looking it up. Zbur. How do you say it?
I think Zbur.
Zbur.
Yeah.
All right. Certainly not trying to insult him by mispronouncing his name. It's Zbur. So basically, what he was attempting to do was make it a requirement that, if you're facing death, if somebody's going to kill or cause serious harm to you, that the first thing you have to do is figure out if there's a way out of that situation before you actually use lethal force.
Would have turned us into a duty to retreat state.
Duty to retreat. That's what they're actually calling it. And in practice, what that literally means is that if your life is in danger, rather than defend, the first thing you have to do is figure out, hey, is there a way for me to get out of this situation?
Jump out of a window.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the interesting thing is it's kind of this weird, there's not like a clear line. I mean, if you can get out of this situation, if there's a way out of this situation,
that's always advisable, even without this.
It's always advisable,
right.
But then...
To put it into the letter of the law just complicates things. It should be up to the jury to determine whether or not this was, appropriate use of force. To put it into the letter of the law that you have to try, now the jury has to basically pretend they were in the room with you to see what you did. Did you look around for an escape route? Did you, open a window and jump out? Did you do all these things? Well, it's so subjective. We have no idea what that person thought of, what that person considered doing, what they were thinking in the moment. We can't be in their brain in the scariest moment of their life. So it's really...
And that's it. That effort, that legal requirement, that, codifying that, hey, is there another way? And then second guessing. I mean, basically, if your life is if there's a way out, then your life really isn't in danger.
Right.
So if you're using lethal force, it means your life is in danger. If you use lethal force and your life wasn't in danger, well, that comes out in a court, like you said.
Well, yeah, and I think it's important to differentiate between using lethal force for protection of yourself versus protection of others, right? Because it is allowed in California if you are witnessing violent crime happening to somebody else, or you're witnessing a mass shooting event or something, you are allowed to use lethal force to stop that threat on behalf of others. It doesn't have to just be personal defense. But I think what you were saying is specifically related to personal defense. If I'm defending my own life and there's a way for me to just not get in the fight, then why wouldn't I just avoid the fight? Like, that's the easiest option. I don't have to deal with lawyers and court and all the things. So avoiding the fight is always going to be, optimal. But there are some cases where that's just not possible. And we don't want defenders to have to second guess their decision to save their own life in the moment, because these things happen so fast.
Yeah, this choose your own adventure. Like, well, gee, why didn't you try to, like I said, jump out the window or, do some kind of ridiculous act? So that's what they were attempting to do. And, there's so much case law, that would just absolutely destroy that. But there's also the optics. I think this guy, the optics of this thing where he's taking away people's ability to defend themselves, I think that this is kind of an indicator, a possible indicator that he's looking at some of the battleground counties in California and going, hey, if our party is trying to make headway here in California, and our policies are trying to make headway here in California, and we just flipped these counties in the middle of the state. They just flipped away from us. Rather, they're voting for Trump or, that sort of thing. And this is not going to fly well in Fresno. This is not going to fly well in Bakersfield and Riverside, whatever. But that combined with law enforcement professionals like the sheriff and Bianco up in Riverside. But basically saying, hey, look, if this thing's not going to go well for your reputation, for you as an elected official, because like I said, this guy's not stupid. Yeah. He's not a zealot either.
Don't be tricked. He knew what he was doing. Yeah. He intentionally wrote the bill the way he wrote it, and now he's backpedaling. He's got a few quotes in this article. One of them is, the bill does not change the longstanding castle doctrine and was never intended to affect anyone's ability to protect themselves, their family, or their home. That is not true.
Right.
He 100% knew what he was writing.
Yeah, it's impossible to do what he was trying to do without doing what he said he wasn't trying to do.
Right.
Another quote that he stated, he says that his bill sought to close dangerous loopholes that could allow armed aggressors to initiate confrontations in public, kill their victims, and exploit self-defense laws. Clearly, he doesn't know the law, because
Right.
if you are the aggressor and you instigate, you lose your innocence. You can't claim self-defense.
Yes.
It's already in the law in a way that would not be justified.
Yeah, he
So-
also said that the reason the bill got canceled basically is because of misleading information that fueled fear and confusion about the bill. There is no confusion. I'm not confused. We're not confused. We know what he was trying to do, and we didn't like it.
Well, I, of course, I'm saying this guy's not a dumb person, but he did actually have a very dumb quote when he was trying to defend this thing before he pulled it, and he brought up what's his name?
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
He brought up
Yeah.
Rittenhouse saying, hey, this is saying that you got to retreat, not act like, Kyle Rittenhouse and whatever, blah, blah, blah. He was actually describing a situation where somebody used self-defense perfectly while they were retreating, 3 times, and anyway, kind of put his foot in his mouth.
I think there's another gentleman in this article by KGET news agency that put this out, David Tingipa, and he made a quote. He said that that this bill was proposed as legislation as part of a criminal first agenda. I think that really sums it up really well.
Yeah.
They're putting the criminal first.
That's really starting to go over
Yeah.
in California. That whole, hey, they're putting criminals first,
Right.
And that, we just had that big referendum, that tried to undo, where they were getting rid of felonies. People could rob a, drugstore
Right.
without getting a felony. That idea is really, really, truly taking a foothold in California. And I absolutely think that they used that sentiment to show what a bad bill AB 1333 is. I mean, it was really right there in line with all the other laws they've passed that basically coddle criminals. That they're not there to benefit the law abiding. They're there to make sure that criminals don't get in as much trouble or have as hard a time in court. Anyway, I'm glad to see it's gone.
Me too.
There you go. So, good riddance, AB 1333. The other thing, I don't, like to make predictions that I can't back up, but this doesn't feel like a bill that's going to pop up again next year, just in a different way. This really feels like they tried something and they got smacked down hard, and it's not going to come back.
Yeah.
Now, there might be another bill next year that's, bad for another reason, but on this particular subject, I don't think they're going to touch that. And again, that is something we can all celebrate here in California as gun owners, that, hey, they tried to take your ability to defend yourself away, and we all said, nope, not going to happen. So congratulations to everybody on AB 1333. Okay, CCWs take a long time to get, and before you know it, you have to renew. But is that about to change? Right now, your California CCW is good for 2 years. Everybody that has a CCW knows that. And you also know that it takes a little while to renew, so it's not quite 2 years that you really have it. By the time you get it and get all settled in and get used to carrying, boom, it's you're ready to have to renew it again. Fortunately, there is a bill that has been introduced, AB 1092, AB 1092. It's actually a very straightforward, short bill, and it's going to lengthen that 2 years to 4 years. And this was proposed, it was authored by Assemblymember Castillo, who's actually up in Riverside County. She is a Republican. I don't know if this thing's going to pass. And like I said, it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Literally, all they do is mark out the word 2 and change it to 4. Mm-hmm. That's the extent of the change. It's going to have to go through all the different committees, the fiscal appropriation. It's going to have to get voted on by the Assembly and then the state Senate and then the Assembly again. The governor's going to have to approve it. This thing's got a long, long road. And right now it's only got one sponsor, and that's the author. That's it. There's not a big committee of people behind this. That could change tomorrow. That could change next month. But right now, not much going on with it. I think that if they tie this thing to SB2 and they tie it to money, and they tie it to making things, making government run smoother, they might have a chance. I think that there's so many people up in Sacramento serving that any way that they can, screw gun owners, they're happy to do it. But I don't know. It's definitely worth at least reaching out to your assembly member, your state senator, and saying, "Hey, how come you're not a sponsor on this thing?"
And it's not just hurting gun owners, right? It's also hurting our sheriff's departments. Our sheriff departments are struggling under the weight of all of the renewals and the initials that they're already doing. If we can do something to help that be more efficient for them, like lengthening the renewal cycle, I think that's just a net positive. I can hear detractors saying, well, we want people to go back and take a class every 2 years because the laws change so often, and we want to make sure that, people who are carrying guns know the most current law. And I will say that currently laws are changing way more frequently than every 2 years, and it is already the CCW permit holder's responsibility to know the most up-to-date laws and to conceal carry accordingly. So whether we have a class every 2 years or a class every 4 years or no class at all, it is still the CCW's responsibility to know what the current law is and to make those decisions accordingly.
Yeah, the other reality is there isn't a problem. CCW holders in California or anywhere in the nation, they're not breaking laws.
Right.
They're not. In fact, they're breaking fewer laws than many other subgroups, including law enforcement officers.
Yeah, they're not committing violent crime. They're doing a very good job when they do get involved in self-defense shootings. Like, we don't hear a lot where a citizen carrying a CCW shoots the wrong person. This is not a problem that needs to be fixed. We have much more low-hanging fruit that we could go after that would actually make change and impact the safety of Americans. But renewals is not it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, though, what's cool about this, though, is at least someone's proposing it. And it's not surprising that the person who proposed it is an assembly member from Riverside. I wouldn't be surprised if, there's a lot of CCW holders up there. The sheriff, of course, is very engaged.
Yeah. And their process is very efficient.
And yes, so hopefully they'll continue, even if this thing doesn't go, even if we don't get what we want. At least she's having the discussion. At least she's putting it out there and sticking up for gun owners, which is something we've long needed. And this is the second bill in a row where we can thank Republicans, which, as hard as I am on Republicans, look at you guys. You guys are actually doing something for gun owners. Oh, my gosh. I don't know what to say. Anyway, so that's AB 1092. Again, I think it's worth talking to folks about. I would like to see all 58 sheriffs jump on board and say, yeah, this is going to help me out. All the police chiefs in the state who issue CCWs, it'll help them out. And I'd love to see, more assembly members and more state senators jump on this thing and make it a focus. I wouldn't be surprised if, now that AB 1333 is dead, that AB 1092 becomes a focus. So let's hope for that. That'd be very nice. We had to only renew every 4 years rather than 2 would be great.
Mike, can you give the call to action again? What can our listeners do from their homes right now to help this bill?
I think the most direct thing you can do is contact your assembly member, your state senator, and say, hey, please support this thing. It's important. I think it's probably, right now, that's the most important. There's probably going to be some more things in the future, but right now, where we're at, that's the thing you can do right now.
You guys have homework. Go do it.
That's right. So there you go, AB 1092. Okay. Okay, so there's two really quick updates. There are two lawsuits. San Diego County Gun Owners is a plaintiff in both. In fact, I'm a named plaintiff in one of them. And they're both with a huge thanks to Firearms Policy Coalition. One is Ashley Marie Barba versus Bonta, and the other is Carolero versus Bonta. And you're going to see some movement on both. Ashley Marie Barba versus Bonta has to do with protecting your private information as a gun owner. I don't know if you remember, but a few years ago, everybody's information was getting leaked, CCW holders, and they're, passed a law saying, hey, we're going to take this information from gun owners and we're going to turn it over different, third parties, like educational institution, colleges, whatever, and they were going to use it to research to figure out how they could ban your guns more. Well, you're going to see some movement. That's actually going to court soon. They are going to be actually in front of a judge. You're going to actually see some good news. That's as much of an update as I can give on it. But I wanted to make you aware. The other one is the Carolero versus Bonta is the one that's going to try to get rid of SB2 specifically right now. SB2 is so huge. It's going to have to. There's going to be multiple lawsuits to take it down. But this one has to do with the bans on where you can carry. So there was an injunction, and then they ruled on the injunction. We didn't quite get what we wanted. And now the actual court case is going to happen. So in the next couple months, you're going to actually see our attorneys go in front of the judge and start making the case. And hopefully we'll get the result. It's going to take some time, but hopefully we'll get the result we want. If you are a member of San Diego County gun owners, then you are a plaintiff in these cases. So please, please, please help us out by joining. Go to sdcgo.org/join. Become a member today and help us out. But I get a lot of questions on both those cases. So I just wanted to update you and let you know. Yep, I know for a fact. Talked to the attorney last week, signed some paperwork, submitted a declaration, and things are happening. So I wanted to let you know. Any questions?
No.
Doing
All
great
good
work.
news.
Yeah, right. All right, that's all you need to know this week.
All right, that's our legal and legislative segment.
Okay, we're going to talk to a very interesting guy named Ryan here in San Diego. He owns Frytech LLC, and they have recently announced a new type of buffer tube. And we're going to talk to him all about it. It's brand new technology. It's something I'd never heard of before, and thought it was particularly interesting, so we wanted to get the scoop. This segment is brought to you by Cargo, cases and rugged gear outfitters in El Cajon. Go check out Cargo. They're on 423 Broadway in El Cajon, or go to their website, cargostores.com. If you need to protect your gear while you're on the go, look no further. Cargo has the perfect case for you. So if you need to protect it, if you want it customized, Cargo is the place to go. Go check them out. Use code GOR for 10% off their website, or mention Gun Owners Radio or SDCGO at the store, and you'll get 10% off there. If you're a manufacturer, they also do customized branded cases for businesses as well. So check them out for that as well. Great products, great prices, and uncommonly good service. Cases and rugged gear outfitters. Cargo gear. Check them out. Ryan, so how's it going, man?
Good. Real good.
So you're going to tell us about, you have an invention. It's described on your website, by embedding free-moving magnets into the buffer tube of a firearm. Frytech, your business, has significantly reduced felt recoil, providing users with a more comfortable and enjoyable shooting experience. So first off, tell me about the name Frytech. I gotta hear what's behind that name.
Well, it's my nickname. My day job for the past 37 years is a tattoo artist.
Oh.
And yeah, that was just a nickname that I've acquired from years ago, and so the name's always stuck. And yeah, so and It just had a nice ring to it.
Now, have you always been into guns, or is this something recent, or what's your history on gun ownership?
I would say probably more about 5 years ago. I never really, I guess, felt the need to have one until around before COVID. And and once I got my first gun, I kind of I had to take things apart, put them together. I just had felt that I just had this need to know how things worked, and I believe maybe not being in the box, quote unquote, is how I started thinking up some of the ideas for what I did with the buffer tubes and the magnetic thing. But yeah, so it was sort of a recent thing.
So it sounds like you're a tinkerer. It sounds like you're somebody that makes things and takes them apart and tries to understand. And is this your first invention, or is there something else that you have that you've?
No, this actually is my first invention. As a tattoo artist, I always the old coil machines. It was a thing to know your craft and basically know your tools. But so I'd always been, tinkering with machines, building them, tuning, keeping them tuned up and stuff. But it kind of was a combination of the coils in the tattoo machines and some of the stuff with the gun stuff, and it was kind of going through my mind. I started kind of developing some ideas, and I think the tattoo machines had some play in my mind going in the direction that it did with the gun thing. But yeah, so I've always been a tinkerer.
I already like the story. I like that someone that got into firearms because of COVID, which is something we've seen a lot of. We saw a lot of people, get into firearms, buy firearms for the first time because of everything that was going on with COVID. And, a tattoo artist was inspired by his equipment to make a better, buffer, spring, or I guess it's not a buffer spring, but a better buffer device for felt recoil. I think that it's a great story. So talk about what exactly is the device. Describe to us what it is.
Okay. Well, so the buffers that right now that, that with the video on the website and what we're really pushing right now, they look like this, and it's a buffer tube, but inside this one's empty, but basically there's magnets inside it opposing, and they're acting as a spring. Originally when I developed this, there was an entire rifle that I developed, and it had the magnetic buffer thing in it. One of the things that I had there's a few versions of this. There's one that had where there was a coil on it, and trigger activated, it sent electricity to the coil, and that kind of disrupted and helped disrupt for the recoil. And then one of the ways, obviously it's the same concept through Lens Law with either the aluminum or the copper. It kind of does the same thing as if it was sending electricity to the coil here. So you get the same effect without having to have it plugged in. But also there was another aspect that I came up with, and this is all in the patent, was with the coil on there. I had a battery. I started thinking at the first one, I had the battery, and I started thinking that if I could recharge the battery through the kinetic energy. So basically I made it where that not these ones, but there's versions where basically you can tap the kinetic energy of the moving magnets, and it could store on a power bank. You can do things like run optics, which is actually what I did on the rifle, which was named the Brujeria, stands for witchcraft. But so this is probably the most raw core part of the patented idea.
So so you're saying the recoil actually generates electricity, and that electricity can power an optic? Is that
yeah,
what
it can, yeah, optics.
Yeah,
I would imagine the way that with electronics and how they can do stuff and get things so small, I would imagine that the amount of energy actually from that can be tapped is probably a bit more than I think I've just scraped the surface with that. And that's stuff that I'm going to eventually get more into. My time's been really consumed now with just these buffers. I guess the recoil aspect of it, a lot of people say, why even get rid of a spring and use the magnets? The main thing is the recoil impulse has completely changed. Everybody that shoots it, I already know the reaction that I will see on their face from the first shot. Sometimes people think that they haven't even, that the gun maybe like there was a squib, or it really reduces the recoil a lot.
It's that smooth. The magnets make it it's such an improvement over springs that it's so smooth that it's almost like you didn't even shoot the rifle, huh?
Yeah. A matter of
Wow.
fact, in the process of me fine tuning it, being that obviously the recoil of the bolt is what's operating the function of the rifle. Excuse me. There's a fine line of how much you can actually, soften or reduce the recoil. And I think I've gotten it to that point where it's just there. And yeah, it's really something else. Everybody that shoots it definitely is extremely impressed with it. There's also it's a more linear, I think. There's video of I put this all the way up to a 12 gauge AR, and on the video I was noticing, well, it was pointed out to me before I really noticed, but it's so linear. There's the muzzle rise is almost eliminated.
Wow.
But yeah, so I mean, just on the recoil and the muzzle rise factor, it's pretty amazing. And then this particular length tube is I've run this on everything from AR9s, AR15s, multiple calibers, and then the AR10. No adjustment really needed. There's a little plug piece that is kind of the transmission between. There's a little lip here, but so different sized of those, and you can put it to the different ARs. But so basically, I've gotten it to where it's a universal, one size fits all kind of thing.
And it says here on the website that the dependability. Traditional springs weaken over time, increasing recoil. Fritex magnets are encased for protection and rigorously tested, withstanding over 15,000 rounds per buffer tube to ensure long-lasting, reliable performance. That's really amazing. Now, you just got back from SHOT Show too, didn't you? Were you showcasing this at SHOT Show?
Yes.
Or talk about that. How was the reaction?
Well, the reaction was incredible. So this year, I didn't have a booth. I went. I've actually one of the people that is now in my company is this guy Zeke Stout. Some people might know him. He was on that. He was the host of one of the hosts of Master of Arms, I think it was called. But you see, he's pretty connected, and so this year we went and he basically, we went to all the people that he knows in the industry, and yeah, a lot of companies that we talked to, and everybody seemed really impressed. Yeah, I was pretty blown away at the reaction people had. I wasn't sure if people, at that level were just going to be like thinking it was right. Kind of like, why do it? Which is obviously
is it real? Does it work? Is it real? Now,
yeah.
Is this something? Can you buy this currently? Or are you still in the development phase, or what's the plan?
Well, okay, so that's where we're at right now. Like, so I have this. I mean, I could essentially go, I would say, to market with this if I wanted to tomorrow, if I had the resources to. Like, I have one of these that is now in the hands of one of these YouTuber guys, gun tubers, I should say. That particular one, I've put over 20,000 rounds myself through, and no signs of any kind of failure, or it's a pretty solid product. But so we have a couple companies right now that we've sent buffers to, and they're looking into it. Really, it's just a matter of we're just trying to get it to market. Licensing it out would be the best option, because most companies have the means through, advertisement, manufacturing. But yeah, we're in the stage right now. We're really trying to get these out, and the patent I have is a utilities patent. So it's the idea. Evidently, they had told me, because when it was the patent was being done, I kept sending designs as I'd improve on stuff and do different gun designs. And they were telling me to stop sending them so much stuff because they didn't need it. It wasn't a design patent. So with that, I can run this on. I'm currently testing for magnets on handguns.
Wow. Which handgun in particular are you working with?
Right now, I actually I have a Glock that I've managed to. I haven't fired it. Just test racking. I've got where it appears it would work. I'm a few steps away from getting to testing, but yeah, I think a Glock would be a good candidate for this, because if it succeeds on the Glock, there's so many other handguns that are basically Glocks. So, but yeah, I'm pretty close on that.
All right. Well, so your website is Frytech, FRYTECH.biz, and you have a video there that you can that folks can see a little bit more about it. And then it looks like you're on social media, you're on Instagram. People can follow you there. What else do you want people to know about your product? Or did we cover everything?
I think we pretty much covered everything. I even talked about, the aspect of this that's not there, which, the recharging of the tapping of the kinetic energy, I should say. I guess really which
by the way, that would be a great excuse to shoot more, right? If you're like, oh man, my optics are running down, I better go run 1,000 rounds through.
Yeah. Well, not only that, I was thinking you could essentially have you could charge your phone, or, I mean, it's there's probably a lot of shake flashlights that you shake. There's just one little magnet in there. This has multiple, and then there's also where the magnets almost collide. I imagine there's an immense amount of energy to be tapped in that. But yeah, I would say, I guess, if you have interest in this, whether it's wanting to get one when they come out, or if you're somebody out there, a company, or somebody with the means to help us get this further along into manufacturing, definitely email us, or in the social media. The Instagram is probably a good one to go to. I try to keep up to date on there. There's a lot of videos that show, especially the rifle in action.
Good.
Some of the motion videos I posted on there, it's cool because you can see how literally the gun doesn't move and the muzzle rise. Yeah. But yeah, I would say, don't hesitate to engage me on my social media. I try to be on there a lot and
perfect.
Answer questions.
Perfect, Ryan. This sounds really, really cool. Let everybody know, go to frytech.biz. You can contact them there. Watch the video, contact them there. It's got more information, but go to FRYTECH.biz and check it out. Ryan, this is awesome. I really appreciate you sharing this with us. I'm glad that I got the opportunity to talk to you about it, and thank you. Very, very cool, man.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you.
So there you go. Frytech, what do you think? Would you try it out?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I wonder, it's one of those things where I wonder why it hasn't, it seems like, I wonder why no one's done it yet, I wonder why it hasn't been popular yet.
I'm curious, if there's a patent, what that actually covers and all of that, because I think the concept exists out there. I think some other manufacturers have done something, so I wonder if he's tapping into a very unique piece of it that nobody else has done. I don't know.
Maybe we might have to. We might have Mike Schwartz AR version 6 on the horizon. But I've had the same AR since 1999. I bought that AR.
Wow.
I have changed every single part on it except the bolt carrier group, but it's the same AR. It takes the same amount of space in the universe, And like I said, I think I'm on like version 5.0. So maybe version 6.0 will have a magnetic buffer tube, which kind of, I don't know, look cool. I like the idea that he's working on something that might generate electricity through shooting.
That is very cool.
So.
He comes in with his son quite a bit and shoots.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Here
I know
at the range?
he does. He comes in quite a bit. So yeah, as soon as he popped up on the screen, I'm like, I know that guy. Yeah, I will tell you, he puts a lot of time into shooting. He puts a lot of time into doing it well. And I watched him on the range, and he really does really investigate and watch what he's doing. So it's pretty rad to watch.
All right. Every week, we find a defensive gun use story that Alicia tells us all the ins and outs on. She's Alicia Curtin. So we call it Curtain Call. And this week, Alicia's going to tell us about a security guard who shoots and kills a burglary suspect who crashed his car into a West L.A. dispensary. What do you got for us, Alicia?
All right. Well, just as stated, the article comes from usacarry.com. And here we have a dispensary up in LA. As we know, dispensaries within the parameters of the law are legal in California now. And they actually have a requirement in the law. They are required by law to provide a uniformed security guard. Mm-hmm. So at this dispensary, we did have a guard. Guard happened to be armed. As I read the statutes and the parameters within the law, the armed portion is not a requirement. The security guard is required to be uniformed. This particular one was armed. So what we had one, potentially two people in a vehicle who decided that it was their desire to rob a dispensary. So their tool of choice to break in and to enter this dispensary to do their nefarious things was to use their vehicle to drive it through. So,
a dispensary, it's just a fancy, it's
a pot store.
It's a pot store, right?
It's a pot shop.
That's all that is, right? It's where they sell pot. And they just call it a dispensary, and they all wear white coats, so it's official. Is that the deal?
Pretty much. Right. And this particular one's called Cookies. So, you know.
No, it's always very medical.
Right. Right. So this gentleman, this young gentleman, the article states that he is 16 years old. He drove his vehicle into the dispensary. And as we know, a vehicle is a tool. And a vehicle is a tool that can be used for transportation. It is a tool that can be used to provide aid by way of getting people transported to hospitals or to work, right, your livelihood. It also is a tool that can be used to take a life or to escape to save a life. In this particular case, the action of driving it into the dispensary, where there were customers and public at large within the facility there, put people's lives at risk.
A 16-year-old.
And it turned out he was 16.
That's tragic in and of itself.
It is. That right there is tragic, and it actually gets much more so as the story goes on. Okay. And so what happened is...
And what I mean by that is that he decided to get into a car and try, put people's lives at risk and, smash... It's just, it just kills me that, these stories,
young people,
it just keeps getting worse and younger and more violent.
Right. And this, by the way, it happened at 3:12 in the morning. So this was middle of the night.
Yeah.
Why wasn't he in bed? Why wasn't he doing his homework?
Right. So, whether the vehicle was his or not, whether it was a family vehicle, whether it was stolen, I'm not sure. The article doesn't give anything to that. So, but he drove this vehicle in response to the vehicle entering the store where there were people in whose lives were at risk. This armed guard took some shots. And he did shoot at this 16-year-old kid. And as a result of that, this kid was he was alive, and he was arrested, and he was taken to a hospital where he later did die. So now, as far as this goes, armed guards in the state of California are required to have a BSIS. Essentially, if they are going to be just simply a guard, they get what's called a guard card. If they are going to be an armed guard, it's a guard with a firearm. So that is a separate level of certification within BSIS with the state. And the use of force and the justification for use of force is not any different. So the fact that he's an armed guard, he doesn't have any powers to arrest. The ability that he has to pull and use that firearm is not any different than you or I would.
Yeah.
So the justification and the use of force and the things that they're responsible for are going to be the same as the average citizen. So as of today's date, or the date of the article, which the article was written just yesterday, and the incident occurred just a few days ago. There's no charges that have been pressed against this security guard. Whether there could be charges in the future, we don't know. They're still in the investigation phase. They're looking at video and talking to witnesses and things. Now, if he shot immediately as this car was still, was just coming through and it was just in that immediate moment, that would be a little bit different than if the car had entered, the kid hopped out. There's no mention of any weapons other than the vehicle.
Yeah.
So
his weapon was the vehicle.
His weapon, and the vehicle can absolutely be a weapon.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So all around, it's a sad case. It's sad that the kid felt the need to do this. Sad that the kid had the heart to do this, and that he followed through with it. The armed guard, he was armed. He did what he felt that he needed to do in that moment. A life was taken, which is unfortunate, but it was a step that was taken in response to the 16-year-old's actions, which he chose to do.
Well, and this is no charges filed. This is a self-defense case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's in L.A. And right. I wonder if a year or two ago, under their old DA, right, if there would have been charges filed, right, because he was pretty extreme. I don't know much about their new DA, but at least they have someone that replaced the old one. The other thing that strikes me that just, it's horrible and tragic. I don't know what went wrong with this kid's life. Right. No idea what his background was, no idea where he came from or why he decided this was a good idea. But what bothers me is this, the anti-gunners, this is another statistic of a child dying because of gun violence. Right. And that's when you hear statistics, that's why it's important to pull it apart and really, really, truly understand what exactly is going on. When they talk about how it's the number one, guns are the number one killer of kids, what about a 16-year-old who violently drove his car, turning his car into a weapon? Mm-hmm. What about that? Is that what we're talking about? What about, the fact that the statistics go all the way up to the age of 19 where, if you're 18 and 19, you're not a kid anymore.
Yeah.
They distort purposely these statistics, and they basically, shout these false statistics while they're standing on the graves of tragedy, in order to push their political agenda, and it just absolutely just is so disgusting to me.
Yep. And there is mention in the article of a potential co-pilot, a passenger that evacuated, but that's been not confirmed. There's conflicting stories on that.
Interesting. All right. What else? Anything else?
That's it. I think the really big takeaway is just the reminder that a vehicle can be a deadly force tool.
Yeah, and I think it's nice not nice, none of this is nice, but it's helpful for the security guard that the driver was also wearing a ski mask, because that helps kind of build that split-second decision, right? Because this could have just been a tragic car accident where a car goes out of control and runs into a building. We see that happen all the time, but there's that extra context there of that, right, ski mask that really helped the security guard solidify, like, no, this is violent intent, this is, lethal force, this is potentially something that could be dangerous to me and everybody else in the store.
Yeah, and I mean, not just for legal reasons, but this poor guy's got to live with this the rest of his life.
100%.
And it's that's a tragedy that doesn't get talked about enough. I mean, he had to do what he had to do. Right. But regardless,
if you're gonna carry a gun, whether it's as a security guard or as an armed civilian, when we think about putting a gun on, we have to think about the fact that there is potential that we would have to shoot, a person who's a grandparent, a person who's a child, a person who's a woman, a pregnant woman. Like, there's all these potentials that exist out there, and we need to be sure that we are okay with protecting our own life, and that we have a plan for if we get in a shooting. What's our mental health plan? Do we have a therapist picked out that's good at dealing with these types of things? Like, all of the things you can do ahead of time to prepare yourself for that potential tragic situation can only help you with the PTSD or with, the aftermath. But it's really unfortunate when we see, shootings involving kids, because I'm sure that is so much harder mentally for a lot of folks.
Yeah. So, all right. Anything else on this?
That's all. I
Okay,
got.
awesome. There's your curtain call. Thank you so much, Alicia. That's awesome. Okay, let's talk about deployment. This is sponsored, by the way, by Red, White, and Badass Brew. Go to rwbbcoffee.com and use code GOR to get 15% off the best coffee you're possibly going to get. These guys are wonderful. Dustin is wonderful. Buy yourself some Red, White, and Badass Brew coffee today using code GOR. So we talk a lot about we make activism easy. We talk a lot about how the American experiment is you're living in the country of the self-governed. You're not being ruled. The purpose of government is to protect your rights. Well, the price of that is you have to be engaged. You just quite simply have to be engaged. You can't look at this as a spectator sport and hope other people do something for you. We put up a meme last week that basically the meme that we put up was that memes aren't activism. And we gave an example of how AB 1333 got killed thanks to activism. That didn't just happen. That was people actually taking action. So we invite you to please get involved. Do a little bit more this year than you did last year. If you didn't do anything last year, then do one thing this year to help. And we give you a couple of different options. And there's a fairly wide variety of things that we help you with. Sometimes it's community building, sometimes it's more direct activism, sometimes it's gathering people or raising money. But we got a couple of things for you this week. First off, Range Day, sponsored by Vista Mayor John Franklin, who is an endorsed San Diego County Gun Owners member and endorsed candidate. He is currently the mayor in Vista. He was on the city council in Vista, and he is sponsoring Range Day for us. Basically, what we're going to do is we're all going to get together. We're going to, there's an outdoor shooting area in Escondido. We'll give you details after you sign up. It's a fantastic place. There's food involved. You're going to come out and spend time with us in the afternoon on a Saturday, shoot some cool guns, bring some ammo, shoot some other folks, their guns, maybe a gun that you've always wanted to try. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of community building. It's going to be a lot of fun. Plus, Barely Training is going to be there. Lee from Barely Training is going to be there. And
Lovely.
they're going to do he's going to do some competition stuff and have some cool guns for you to shoot. It's going to be a really good time. And it's only $10. It's March 29th. It's only $10. Space is limited, though, so we need you to sign up right now. So go to sdcgo.org. On the homepage, there is a little graphic on there. All you do is click on it, sign up, and we'll send you all the details after. So that's Range Day.
Fallbrook Guns is going to be providing ammo.
Oh, yeah, and Fallbrook, there's going to be Fallbrook Guns is going to bring some ammo. So that's Range Day, sponsored by Vista Mayor John Franklin. Sign up today. Come on out. Help us build the community. Have some fun. Learn a thing or two. It'll be great.
Last Range Day is where I got a chance to shoot a staccato.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
How'd you do?
Oh, I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you should go buy one. Oh, wait a minute.
Dang. Da, da, da.
Like I said,
Thanks for the reminder, Mike.
Yeah, we're working on the roster. Next thing is tabletops and shooting socials. Teach someone to shoot. Come to one of our shooting socials. We have at least one a month, sometimes two, sometimes three. We have a couple that are coming up. It's super easy. All you're doing is you're showing somebody how to shoot a gun, and it's your gun. We provide everything. We provide the student, we provide the ammo, we provide the range, we provide the day and the time. All you do is go to our volunteer page and say, hey, I want to help. If it's your first time and you just want to observe, let us know. We'll have you observe and show you how to give somebody a first-time shooting experience. And then our tabletop program has been wonderfully successful. It's our gun shop tabletop program. You're never going to be alone. Someone sets up the table and the literature for you. All you do is come in and help that person. Talk to people who are going into a gun shop. Say, hey, let me tell you about San Diego County Gun Owners. Give them information on how to get a CCW, for example. If you don't have the answer, then we'll get them the answer. It's super easy, and you get a free T-shirt. So go to SDCGO. Let's see, sdcgo.org/volunteer. sdcgo.org/volunteer, and you can sign up. Just pick an event. day and time, sign up, and boom, boom, boom. Again, we make activism easy. Don't sit on the sidelines. This is your year, 2025. There's so much good happening. We need your help. Okay, the other thing we need you to do is the NRA is voting on their board of directors, and you have to be a life level member to vote. So if you're not, then you can join. It's not too late to join, and then you'll get your ballot and vote. If you're already a life member, make sure you get your ballot and vote. If you don't have your ballot, contact NRA directly. This is the first time we've ever endorsed candidates for the NRA board. It's a pretty important time in NRA's history. I don't think it's out of line to say they've had a bad couple of years. So there are a number of people that are running for the board, and they're looking to improve NRA's future, and we have a lot of faith in them. So Kim Rohde, we interviewed her. There's a whole list of people. We're going to put that up. It's on our social media. We're going to make sure it's up on our website. We'll give you a link to all their names, but we need you to vote for each of the names. You get to vote for up to 20 or something like that, 25. So vote for the names that we've endorsed. Help us improve the NRA and improve their future. So that's who to vote for. So stay informed, get trained, be a part of the community, and we'll see you at the next event. That's your deployment segment. Okay, let's talk about one thing before we go talk to Sam. I want to talk about, there's already some elections happening. You know, we're just a couple of months into 2025, and the big election isn't until November 2026, but there's already some election stuff happening that I wanted to talk about. Christy Bruce Lane is somebody that's running for the state senate in the 40th out in East County, and last week we announced that she was endorsed by Sheriff Chad Bianco, which is awesome, and we've endorsed her in the past. I'm sure we will as well. She's done a fantastic job, but I wanted to talk about one of her opponents. She just had a Democrat opponent jump in who's extremely anti-gun. She's actually on the San Diego City Council right now. Her name's Marnie Van Wilpert, and she's extremely anti-gun. She's extremely extreme as well. But Christie's main opponent is a guy named Ed Musgrove. And we've talked about Ed in the past, but I wanted to talk about, there are three people I wanted to talk about. Ed Musgrove, Rebecca Jones, and John McCann are all throwing their hat in the ring right now. And we just praised the Republican Party earlier in the show on some of the things that they've done. But I got to tell you, these three running for office is kind of a mess for Second Amendment. In fact, not kind of, it definitely is a mess for Second Amendment. We've talked about Ed Musgrove, we wouldn't endorse him. I was looking forward to endorsing him for city council up in San Marcos, but his questionnaire came back and it was just an absolute disaster. It was very much a, guns for me, but none for thee kind of attitude. And it's just a shame that that they're putting him up. And he's even got pro Second Amendment supporters. And it really, truly proves that the Republican Party is not a pro Second Amendment organization. They're a political party. Right. Now, I think historically it's fair to say that we've had more friends on that side of the political aisle than we've had on the left side of the political aisle. But please never, ever get confused and think that the Republican Party is a pro-Second Amendment organization. That's not what their purpose is. That's not what they do. That's not who they are. And Ed Musgrove is being endorsed by a lot of people that are a part of the Republican establishment. And they don't care about the fact that he doesn't care about your Second Amendment rights. In fact, he'd be willing to take some of them away and doesn't think you should have, as free access, that we think that sane, trained, law-abiding gun owners should have to self-defense, which is what it really all boils down to. Rebecca Jones is running for supervisor. She announced she's running for supervisor up in North County. This is Jim Desmond who's being termed out. Jim Desmond is actually running for Congress, but he can't run for supervisor again because he's being termed out. So we have two people running, Republican Rebecca Jones and then Republican John Franklin, who's the mayor of Vista. Now, John Franklin's wonderful. He's been great on Second Amendment. He's been great as far as a local leader. He's somebody that puts his money where his mouth is, so to speak, when it comes to the Second Amendment. He doesn't just kind of pat the Second Amendment community on the head and say, oh, don't worry, I'm with you. He actually stands up for the Second Amendment, stands up for CCW, stands up for, everything that we stand for, and we're very appreciative of that. Meanwhile, Rebecca Jones, she was running for city council, or she was running for mayor in San Marcos after Jim Desmond left. And she courted us and promised us the sun, the moon, and the stars, and how she loved our women's program and this, that, and the other thing. And oh boy, does she want and need our endorsement. And then as soon as she was elected, she couldn't be bothered. We asked her, hey, could you just kind of show up and, shake some hands and meet some of the folks in the organization that you really wanted the endorsement from? She couldn't be bothered. Absolutely couldn't be bothered. I also think it's worth saying that, this is, in fact, next week is the 5-year anniversary of COVID. And it's not a Second Amendment issue, but it's definitely a political issue. In fact, I think it's the biggest political issue that's happened since Pearl Harbor. It's definitely the biggest change in politics and in culture. It's impossible to ignore. We can't just say, well, gee, that's not a Second Amendment issue. No, it speaks to the type of elected official you are, how you reacted, and how you acted during that. And I've told this story before, but it's worth repeating. I was in a meeting just after the COVID shutdowns. In fact, they said, hey, we're going to shut down for 2 weeks. And that turned into, months. And about 2 months after the 2 weeks was up, there was a meeting in East County at someone's private home full of elected officials and myself and like 1 or 2 other people that weren't elected, but there were just about every Republican that you can think of in the county. Not every single one, but just about. And I went to this meeting with a plan and said, hey, here's what we need to do. We need to band together. We need to, put out a press conference. We need to say, hey, we're not going to abide by this, and this. And had an actual plan. Rebecca Jones was there and absolutely derailed the plan, completely derailed the whole meeting. In fact, talked about how she was scared, she was terrified. People are talking to her. She was not just scared of COVID, but she was scared of the repercussions of standing up, for people's rights. And I got to tell you, I think that her mettle was tested and she failed miserably. Twice, after we endorsed her and she got elected, and then we asked her, hey, could you just show up? And she refused. And then during COVID, I think her performance during COVID is absolutely ridiculous. To add insult to injury, one of the reasons that she bowed out of saying anything about the Second Amendment and, attending our meetings or, showing any kind of support for us is basically she said, well, gee, I'm on this city council in this small town that, Second Amendment doesn't really affect us. Doesn't really have anything to do with us. And then not too long later, she was publicly rallying against offshore drilling for oil. Now, I don't know if you've seen a map of San Marcos lately, but it's landlocked. They don't have to worry about drilling for oil offshore. And oh, by the way, that's not a city council, subject. But she was fine, putting, running her mouth about that. But she isn't okay with standing up for your Second Amendment rights. That behavior shouldn't be rewarded. Mm-hmm. We have a very good candidate running for supervisor in John Franklin. Not endorsed yet, but I can't imagine he won't be. We endorsed him for mayor. We endorsed him for city council. But I think it's important that you guys know exactly what's going on with these candidates. The last one is John McCann, and I saved the worst for last. John McCann on the city council. He was actually on a school board, he's on a school board down in South County, and then got onto Chula Vista City Council, and he's now the mayor. Well, he came up to me a few years ago at an event and pulled me aside and said, hey, there's this vote that's going to happen that has to do with guns, and I don't think I have the 3 votes to defeat it. And I said, okay, let me work on your 3rd vote. And he said, yeah, and we talked about it, and he showed me the wording, and it was basically showing support for a gun ban. and it was showing support for a magazine ban, and it was showing support for expanding red flag laws or gun violence restraining orders. And we talked right there at the event and said, yeah, this is bad news. You know, we don't want any part of a gun ban and a mag ban and expanding gun violence restraining orders. So I worked hard. I got him the third vote. The third vote was a Democrat on the city council. Her name is Jill Galvez. And Jill said, gee, I don't know if I want this heat. And I said, don't worry. We have your back. You know, if you vote with us, if you vote what she believes in, she's very pro Second Amendment. You know, we'll have your back. We'll stand up for you. The other part of it was, I said, we're not going to show up with 150 people and make this into a big news story. You know, with you, you're the third vote. It was a guy named Mike Diaz. It would have been John McCann and then her. And that would have been 3 votes and we would have won. So we laid low. I let John McCann know, hey, you got your third vote. You know, I sent him a text and I sent him a voicemail. I called him a few times and it went to voicemail. And he got his third vote, you know. Well, the night of the vote came and went, and I talked to Mike Diaz, who was on the city council, and I said, how did it go? And he said, well, I voted the right way. He said, Jill Galvez voted the right way, but John McCann didn't. And I said, well, what do you mean? How is that even possible? Well, he voted in favor of the gun ban. He voted in favor of the magazine ban. He voted in favor of the gun violence restraining orders. And when I called him the next day, you know, he basically lied about it. He said, well, gee, you didn't have anybody there. I said, I know I didn't have anybody there. You and Jill and everybody else said they didn't want to make this into a big deal. We already had the votes. There's no reason to have 100 people there. And I said, regardless of not having people there, is this something you believe in or not? You know, do you believe in gun bans or do you not believe in gun bans? You know, why would 50 people showing up to talk about it, you know, change your mind on all that? He lied about our interaction. He lied about what he was actually voting on. It was crystal clear that they were voting on basically saying, hey, we want a gun ban. We want to take these California gun laws and we want to expand them nationwide. And no uncertain terms. I mean, this is something he voted for. So there really is, and he's running for supervisor in South after Nora Vargas stepped down. There's no good option in that race. There's no good option, and I'm seeing people talk about John McCann like he's going to be some kind of breath of fresh air on the board of supervisors. You can't trust this guy, especially on guns. But, you know, after I published, and by the way, this isn't the first time I'm bringing this up. I wrote a whole article about this and told everybody exactly what happened and exactly what he said. And he didn't even really deny it. He just said that I was being mean. That was his whole defense was, well, gee, Mike said, you know, I was mean to him. Okay, yeah, I kind of was. But you know what? He deserved it.
Yeah.
He lied to me. He misled me. And then he voted the wrong way. You know, I wrote about this years ago. And he absolutely does not deserve your vote. But the interesting thing was, after I published an article talking about how badly he screwed us over, I got people who'd worked with him before in the past, you know, people who knew him, who all kind of secretly reached out to me and said, yeah, this guy's bad news. You know, when the vote's hard, he just gets up and leaves the dais. You know, if you've ever seen him on an interview, he runs away. I mean, if you're telling me, if you're voting for him, if you're going, hey, you know what, not everything is the Second Amendment. You know, so he's bad on the Second Amendment, but there are other issues I'm concerned on. If any of those issues are controversial and you're putting your eggs in the John McCann basket, good frickin' luck. This guy's not going to, he's got no backbone. He's not going to stand up for you in any way. You know, he's going to put his finger in the air and figure out which way the wind's blowing, and he'll be happy to backstab you.
Duck tail and run.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because all these folks are Republican. The ultimate John McCann story, though, is he right before he got onto the city council, he was at a restaurant, and a local activist came to talk to him while he was at a restaurant. He got annoyed by this activist for bugging him at a restaurant. They got into it, and they were yelling at each other. So the activist drove away. John standing outside of this guy's truck, and the guy drove away. John reached down, picked up a rock, and threw it at the truck. Threw a rock, like Trevor Hoffman this thing, not tossed it, like, you know, pegged this guy's truck with a rock. And what he didn't know is there was a security camera that caught it. And so NBC News pulled him aside and said, hey, we want to talk to you about it. And he said, oh, yeah, we got into it. It's not a big deal. And they said, well, we have security footage of you throwing a rock. He goes, oh, I never threw a rock. They were saying, well, here's the video. Yes, you did. You threw a rock. He came out later. He stammered and, whatever. Came out later and said, oh, no, I dropped my cell phone and I was just bending down to pick it up. Bending down to pick it up and then winding up and throwing it at an activist? I mean, no. You bent over, you picked up a rock, you threw it, and then you lied to NBC about it. Nothing good about John. This guy should be nowhere near power. And no one remembers this stuff, unfortunately. I, again, would put our vetting up against any organization in the county, period, bar none. I understand that we are laser focused on the Second Amendment, but it doesn't matter where they stand on the Second Amendment if they're not good quality candidates. And none of these guys are. Ed Musgrove, Rebecca Jones, John McCann, none of them are quality candidates. And oh, by the way, none of them support your Second Amendment rights. And it's important that everybody knows this story. It's unfortunate that you don't have a choice down in South for supervisor. There's nobody to vote for, not John McCann, not anybody else. But at least in Rebecca Jones' race, you have John Franklin to vote for. And at least with Ed Musgrove, he's going to get absolutely clobbered by Christy Bruce Lane. She's a wonderful candidate. We look forward to supporting her and making sure that she wins and is successful in this run. So anyway, what do you guys think? Any thoughts?
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
In so many ways. Surprised, no. Unfortunately.
Surprised that they're being supported?
No, I'm sorry. I was stuck on McCann.
Oh.
Sorry.
Yeah, nobody's really surprised. Everybody's kind of holding their nose. Even when I talk to people like, hey, what are you going to do in that race? They kind of go, they kind of have to hold their nose and vote for this clown. Mm-hmm. And it's just so unfortunate, And there's there's just nobody else in South County. There's nobody else in a position of power or authority or anything. There's nobody on the bench. He's it.
So what's the takeaway here? Go vote in your water board and your school, all the smaller things so that we can have better candidates in these higher positions, right?
There's a couple of takeaways. Number one, I'm absolutely bragging about the amount of vetting that we do for our candidates. There's no question that San Diego County Gun Owners vets candidates better than anybody in the county, any organization, period, probably in the whole state. The other thing is, you can't just rely on a party. You can't just say, hey, this guy's in the right party or whatever. Yeah. But also character's important, even in whatever John is saying or whatever any of these candidates are saying, but particularly John McCann, whatever they're telling you they're going to stand up for, if they don't have the character and the backbone to actually do it when the time comes, it just doesn't matter. You're not actually voting for what you think you're voting for. But, I encourage you, become a member of our organization, get involved, help us continue to do the good work that we do. Vote for the right people. Don't vote for a party. Always vote for the individual. And, and don't just assume that a party or an organization of any kind has your best interests in mind when it comes to Second Amendment, because they will just absolutely sell you out. If it means like, hey, we might get a little bit more power, we might get a victory, we might get a win under our belt, and we'll sell gun owners down the river, to do it. Yes, they will absolutely do it. So, stay true to your convictions. And if you're not that motivated by the Second Amendment, I still say that, be motivated by the fact that we actually tell the truth and promote, quality candidates. So I think those are the takeaways.
Love it.
Yeah. So there you go. Let's do everybody's favorite segment, Stump My Nephew, brought to you by Seal1. Seal1.com. Their website again, seal1.com. Cleaning your guns shouldn't take forever. Seal1 makes it faster and easier so you can spend more time on the range or just living your life. Guys, Seal1 is the absolute best. If you want a lubricant and a cleaner in one, if you don't want to smell up your whole house while you're cleaning your guns, check out Seal1. If you just want to support a company that supports your Second Amendment rights, It supports organizations and education and outreach and all the things that Seal One does. Check out Seal One. And they just came out with this aerosol spray that's kind of like WD-40, and you can use it anywhere and everywhere that you would normally use WD-40. So support Seal One, not just because they're a great product, but because they support Gun Owners Radio. They support San Diego County gun owners. They are absolutely involved in the fight. I just saw Dwight from Seal One. He took the class with Masad Ayub, right? Isn't that where I saw him? Yeah. He was there, former Navy SEAL, and he was there learning and having a good time, and can't thank him enough. Dwight, Seal One, you guys are awesome. So try it today. Grab yours now. Go to seal1.com or go to your favorite gun shop and say, hey, where's my Seal One? So, Sam, how's it going, man?
I'm well. How are you guys?
Fantastic. It's good to see you. Are you ready for the question today? I think it's a good question today. I think it's hard, but it's in your wheelhouse, so I think you might get it. But it's hard enough to be interesting, and I think you're going to know a little something about it, and you'll give us one of your fantastic lectures about it. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well,
right.
we'll see. You're building me up as always. So that means I'm going to get it wrong. But
yeah, really. All right. Well, let's see what
how's
happens.
that?
All
We'll
right,
find
Dakota,
out.
fire it up.
All right, so George from Mission Valley asks, during the Vietnam War, the South Vietnamese most commonly used M16s and M1 carbines supplied by the U.S. Name one of the three most common French guns the South Vietnamese used before being armed by the U.S.
What was that, George from Mission Valley?
Yeah.
Yes.
George, thanks very much for writing in from Mission Valley, which I have been confidently assured is a real place.
Yeah.
So the question is about French arms used by the South Vietnamese in the Vietnam War. For the uninitiated, this might sound like a weird question, but because many Americans' knowledge of the Vietnam War starts in about the early to mid 60s, when U.S. involvement began to ramp up, and ends in about 1973, 1975, when we pulled out. But outside of the U.S., it was called, and before the U.S. became involved, it was known as I think it was the Second Indochina War, second or third, I think it was the second. Because it's Vietnam's colonial name under France, which was its colonial power, was French Indochina. So, like any colony, all the arms that were there before the French basically got their butts kicked and pulled out and handed the problem over to us, all the weapons were French. So the French were there occupying Vietnam through the 50s and I believe early 60s. The small arms you would have encountered there would probably have been France's standard service rifle at the time, the Moss 49-56. They may have also had, now I'm just sort of shooting from the hip here, no pun intended, because I'm not really an expert on French colonial occupations, but I would advise that they had a decent number of Moss 36s left over in inventory from before and during World War II that they just had as second line arms for gendarmerie and security forces. And they also had a large number of, Mott 49 submachine guns, the ones with the weird folding magazine well thingy.
Well,
So
that is a very good answer. So the South,
I think he knows a little bit.
yeah, he's a smart guy. The South started out with French weapons like the Moss 36, 44, and 49.
There you go. Tell us about the Moss 36. What was the Moss 36?
The Moss 36 is a action service rifle. I don't know too terribly much about it, other than it's chambered for the then standard 7.5 French cartridge. They tried to replace it with a semi-automatic rifle, the Moss 40, but something happened to France in 1940 or thereabouts that got in the way of small arms production.
Yeah.
So they weren't able to field a large number of those. They mostly had MOS 36s until after the war, when they began to replace them with semi-auto rifles.
Unfortunately for
MOS
the
49,
South Vietnamese, they were French, so they were never used and dropped once, right?
okay. Keep in mind that the French army in its various incarnations has won more battles than that of any other country in history.
I will never respect the French. It just won't happen. Not on this show. Not on my watch. Okay, that is a perfect answer. You did a wonderful job. Awesome. My apologies to the French. You guys are fine. Jeez, I love your fries and your dressing and your bread. So, but yes, the MOS 36, the MOS 44, and the MOS 49. All right, cool. You got a blog coming up?
Real quick, something interesting about the MOS 49, which is it has design heritage from the 44 and the 40. It is a direct impingement rifle, which was not really common at the time and is still not super common other than the AR platform. But it's really more of a pure direct impingement operating system than the AR-15 and AR-10. The AR-15 bolt carrier has a gas expansion chamber inside of it. That's why it has gas rings. So you'll hear people call it an internal piston system, as opposed to pure direct impingement. But you always have to add that qualifier. Well, it's properly called internal piston because it has an expansion chamber in the bolt carrier right before someone shoves you into a locker for trying to clarify that. But the 49 is an actual, like, real pure direct impingement system. So I don't know. I just think that's neat.
That is neat. So that was probably a big advancement at the time?
Yeah, people were still trying to figure out what gas systems and what locking systems worked the best. And so that one, most of the other early generation self-loading military rifles used some kind of external piston. The M1 was a long stroke gas piston. The piston is connected to it's part of what would be a bolt carrier, but it doesn't enclose the bolt. The Russians were experimenting with short stroke piston systems, but the Liungman and the French rifles are the only ones I know of that are actually guy.
Nice. All right.
I'm curious.
Yes.
Sam, were you on when we had Frytech guest on?
Did you
Say again?
share a guest that we interviewed?
No.
No, I just logged in a few minutes ago. All right.
I'd be really curious to hear Sam's take on the magnet.
Yeah,
concept.
the buffer
Yeah.
the buffer tube. He developed an AR buffer tube that doesn't use a spring. It uses magnets to
Lighten the recoil.
There you go.
Yeah, we should send Sam the video and get his take on it next week.
Yeah.
Magnets are cool. I like a good magnet as much as an X guy.
There you go. All right. I'm not even going to try to say that any better. That was said perfectly. Magnets are cool. What about your blog? You got a blog coming up?
My most recent blog post was the one about how to read executive orders.
Yeah.
Assuming I got my dates right, let me just check it, because I schedule these in advance, so I get mixed up as to which one just went up. But my next one, it was the This Is My Rifle. Those of you who've been following the blog and listening to me yammer on will know that I work as a freelance writer, and I do a lot of stuff for Leatherneck Magazine, the magazine of the Marines. And so this 2025 is the 250th anniversary year of the Marine Corps. And for that, they've been doing one issue. Each month's issue focuses on a particular time span in the history of the Marine Corps. So I've been doing a series of little short pieces, like something you'd see in a Jane's Recognition Guide, if you're familiar with those, about the iconic long arms that Marines carried throughout the history of the Corps. And the most recent one that went up is about the M1795, which was the first standard U.S. military long arm to be produced domestically. And it was a copy of a French gun. So there you go.
The French.
Full circle.
There they are again. Oh, man. Was that their best invention,
Well,
the French?
it was good enough, but I will say that all of the Charlevilles they shipped to us to fight the British, they gave because they had just gotten better stuff for themselves.
Yeah, see, the right answer is their best invention was, of course, the French kiss. That was their best invention. You know.
All righty.
All right, let's move on.
You're not wrong.
I
Okay,
would say
so
their best invention was smokeless powder. That's a big one.
did they invent that?
Yeah,
Is
they
that really
invented
better than the
smokeless
French
powder.
kiss, though? I don't know.
I don't know. I've used smokeless powder, so it's pretty good. I don't know about the other thing, but I don't know if this counts as an invention. But Antoine Lavoisier discovered oxygen. He figured out that air is a mixture of gases. So it's not an invention, but it's an important contribution.
It is. I guess it is. You're right.
The depth of your knowledge amazes me.
All right, let's go on. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a roundtable discussion. We have a couple of things to talk about. This next one, we got a couple of videos. There's a guy named. So here's what happened during the election, especially the presidential election. There were a bunch of people that were trying to get the basically the young man vote, the voters, male voters 18 to about 30, basically right in Sam's age range. So they jumped online and TikTok and YouTube and whatever, and they did kind of this guerrilla marketing thing where you thought you were just watching an interesting conversation or whatever relating to somebody, but really what they were doing is they were pushing their political agenda. And one in particular is a guy named Harry. How do you pronounce that?
Sisson? I don't know.
Harry Sisson.
I think so.
And he had a really interesting take on the first time he ever shot a gun. And he did a whole, usually, people, what we're used to, I've seen thousands of people at this point shoot a gun for the first time. And the reactions are overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
One or two people said, you know what, I tried it, it's not for me. But I've certainly never had a bad reaction, and usually people, it takes the mystery out. It's fun. It's the big advantage I've said before that we have is it's a lot more fun to shoot a gun than it is to ban a gun. So, if you get somebody on a range to shoot a gun, they usually have a good time. Well, he decided he was going to try to buck that trend, and here, let's show his video that he made after his first shooting experience that just happened a couple months ago.
I shot a gun for the first time today, and I've always been told by Republicans that after the first time, I'll be in favor of guns and I'll want more guns. But for me, it was the exact opposite. I realized how powerful these guns are, and at a moment's notice, they can be used to take someone's life. And the fact that in many states in this country, you can walk into one of these stores and 10 minutes later walk out with an AR-15 is absurd. This experience made me want more gun control, not less.
Okay, so that's propaganda. That's not an opinion, the demonstrative,
It's not even true.
Dramatic, that's all politics. And what's even more interesting about this is after the election went so poorly for Kamala that a bunch of people jumped ship and said, you know what, this whole thing was rotten from the get-go. Biden, everything was rotten from the get-go. And one in particular was a major fundraiser, and her name is Lindy Lee. And she, like, when I say fundraiser, like, this lady was raising tens of millions of dollars for you name the national Democrat, and she is completely flipped on the party, and she's going around giving a bunch of interviews, and she specifically talked about how insincere this Harry Sisson, whatever, is, and I wanted to play that real quick.
And that. Are they getting paid to say things they don't believe in?
Yes, because I know for a fact that...
Got it. So you don't think Harry Sisson believes in what he's saying?
I know that he didn't think that Biden was fit.
How do you know that? The way he described
because
Biden
we shared
was...
a manager for like a month.
You guys shared a manager together for a month. You're kidding me. He made it seem like Biden was a second dad to him.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I even spent more time with Biden than he did. I think he met Biden like twice.
And so he just said it because
I do want to say, like, Harry, if you're listening to this, I mean, I still like you as a person. I'm sorry, but it is the truth, and you know I'm telling the truth. Like, you.
Pretty damning, right? So she went on to say that this guy's getting hundreds of thousands of dollars, like $250,000 a year, by the Democrats and their various entities to just put out this crap online, to just lie about things.
There's a lot of people who will say a lot of things for that kind of money.
Yeah. Well, and I think the guy is a zealot. I think he's this doesn't stray too far from his political philosophy, but the dishonesty is, he didn't actually have that reaction when he shot a gun.
Right.
He already had that political opinion, and he decided going in, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go shoot a gun, and then I'm going to, make up this ridiculous video, to try to further my political agenda. And really, all he's trying to do is he's trying to influence people, in his age bracket, that can relate to him, his followers or whatever. And, like I said, they're paying him $250,000 or whatever a year to do it. And it's terribly dishonest.
Probably a lot of his followers have also never shot a gun. So they hear this and they're like, oh, okay, that kind of is like the nail in the coffin for why I don't want to try this out. And so that's even, I don't know, it seems even more disingenuous. It's not like he's telling this to a mixed crowd. I'm sure the vast majority of people who follow him are probably, similarly aligned politically and possibly haven't ever fired.
And it's basically, it's a training video on how to react when your Republican buddy takes you to go shoot a gun.
Yeah.
Curious, is there footage of him actually shooting?
I didn't see any. You wanted to see?
I want to see it.
You want to see the video of the smile on his face?
I do. I do.
Turns around with a big grin.
Right.
You're like, that's, yeah.
Right.
Well,
if he's that disgusted,
yeah,
I want to see it.
I know.
Yeah.
It's totally full. Yeah. Well, on that, I want to show one more video. So a few years ago, we actually had a shooting social where a 17-year-old girl, she was actually an exchange student, I think from Poland. I want to say she was from Poland. And she was very interested in shooting a gun. And she shot a gun. She learned how to shoot. She learned all the safety rules and everything. And then we made a video showing her shooting an AR for the first time. And it reminded me of that video. And I just wanted to show that real quick. And then we'll talk a little bit more about it.
Without someone doing something about it, it's not going to get any better.
Now, why was she so much more able to handle an AR than poor old Harry? Why was she able to have fun, and why was she not terrified of this boogeyman of a gun? And he was. The 17-year-old girl handled it better than he's probably like a 22, 23-year-old guy. Kind of embarrassing.
This is an example, I think, of what psychologists call the priming effect. And what it is like I could tab over and read a dictionary definition, but basically what it is when you've received some kind of stimulus, whether it's someone saying something or, whether you see, like let's say you read a news article about BMWs or something, then on your drive to work, you're more likely to notice a large number of BMWs, or
Right.
like Jeep people always notice other Jeeps because they're primed to recognize other Jeeps. So I think that this Harry Sisson fella, already being very vehemently anti-gun, was already primed to be afraid of firearms, especially, and I don't think it mentioned what type of firearm he shot, but especially AR-15 firearms. So I'm not really surprised that going in expecting to be scared or disappointed or experiencing some other negative feelings, he absolutely did. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's not useful, but exactly as you said, it's aimed, no pun intended, at people who are also very young and don't have any experience with firearms, to tell them, See, I did it and it was scary. See, guns are bad on an emotional level. It really contribute anything to the discourse, I don't think. And so I would say that the healthy thing to do is for anyone who is a young person who, or of any age, who hasn't had any experience with firearms, to not listen to what other people say about here's why I don't, or even here's why I do like guns, but to go out and have that experience for yourself and form your own opinions instead of listening to talking heads on your cell phone, whatever.
Yeah, do they do that? Do people under 30 do that? Do people under 30 go out and have their own experiences anymore, or is it all it's all?
No, what are experiences?
Hey, I resemble that remark.
Well, I thought it was interesting. I got to tell you, it's just amazing how much people are trying to control you. It's amazing how easy it is to create a narrative and have it go national. Almost too easy. So one of the things, yes, this is directly gun related, but one of the things we like to do on the show a lot, and I talk about a lot, is we like to pull back the curtain and show like, well, hey, this is what's really going on. And that was a pretty damning interview from Lindy Lee, where she was like, yeah, this guy doesn't believe it. He's just getting paid $250,000 a year to make these cutesy little TikTok videos. And he's kind of the left-wing darling, and that should honestly, if we really truly lived in a society that valued character and honesty, that should end his career tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But he's still going to be around, and he's still going to be, whoever the next candidate is, he's still going to be, preaching his crap, which that's not something we do. I mean, we just railed against 3 Republicans, who I know if they were in this room would swear that they love your Second Amendment rights, and we're not swayed by their narrative, and I'm hoping that that we all do the same. So I wanted to show everybody. I thought it was entertaining. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think being able to recognize honesty is something that everybody can learn to do a little bit better. I think we can all get a little tripped up by words sounding pretty or sounding, convincing. And when we actually think about it, is there motivation for this person to be saying this thing? Let's use critical thinking a little bit more. Let's think about, okay, why could this person have this opinion? Is it actually truth, or is it for a particular agenda? I think on both sides of the aisle, we can all get better at doing that.
Yeah, I agree. And, we are pure Second Amendment. There are so many other groups of people that take their subject and just use it to get, their party elected.
Right.
Where really their cause is secondary. And we will never, ever be, we've never, ever been like that. We never, ever will be like that. I got to tell you, in the San Diego community, I don't think there's a single sincere LGBT activist out there. I have not yet to meet one. In my experience, the LGBT issues come second, and what's first is getting a Democrat elected. But they're not the only ones. There's a lot of groups that are just like, hey, all we are is we're about getting, our party elected. And the anti-gun groups in San Diego, the local ones, are just the same. They are not really about being anti-gun. They're about being, they're about getting Democrats elected, where that's not what we're about. We're about Second Amendment, and I'm very, very, very proud of all that. So anyway, anything else? Anybody?
I think a great takeaway from this is that we should all be more proactive. I'd like to challenge everybody to be more proactive.
Amen.
If you took a friend to the range last month that's never shot before, let's do 2 this month, right? If you do our part to try to expose more and more of the population that wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity, right? Be that friend, be that catalyst, be that one that invites them. Because a lot of people that have never gone before are timid. They're afraid. They think they walk into a gun range or a gun shop. It's scary. There's, a lot of people I don't know what to ask for. I don't know what to say. Hold their hand, guide them and kind of show them the way. I think it's on a low level what we can do to help build the base.
I agree. And when it comes to politics, stick to your guns. Stick to your guns.
That's
And
it.
don't trust anything a politician says.
No kidding. Good Lord. Well, in politics, what do they say? There's no friends in politics, just temporary allies. That's it. So anyway. All right, Sam, you got anything? Any parting words?
No, that's a great challenge. Everyone go out and take a first timer to the range, but I don't have anything.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. Well, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Appreciate everybody. Thank you so much to the sponsors. Thank you so much to Cargo, to Seal One, to Red, White, and Badass Brew. Alicia, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For everything that you do. And Dakota, you as well. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like and share. Do all the things that it takes to get our word out there. Everybody knows the rules. One bite only. And thank you. See you next week. Gun Owners Radio.